One sentence, no context.
Okay, thank you so much. I have one question to Akili. She talked about engagement so that we can engage when we have issues. But the problem with engagement is access. How do we get the platforms and access to engage? It's the most important thing. Thank you.
Let's appreciate him. Right. Yes, now it is time for our distinguished guests to address us on the matters and concerns that have been raised. I would like to start with my senior in the profession, Advocate Millie Luanga, as she comes to the podium. Let's appreciate her.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon once more. Now, I must say that I'm very, very excited about the reactions and the questions that have emanated from this plenary for one particular reason, that when we started our session, we had a plan and we had an objective, and we have seemingly realized that objective. One was to excite you to start thinking of some of the issues that you'd like addressed and that come into the budget process, whether it's at implementation stage or whether it's at the process of developing that budget. And that clearly has emanated from most of the questions that you've asked here. Now, you may recall, for those of you who were here when I was speaking, that I said this afternoon, the Cabinet Secretary will speak to the budget process, implementation, and the development. And you will find that most of those issues will have been addressed in his speech this afternoon. And if they are still not addressed clearly to you, I'm sure that we'll have another question and answer session that he would be able to respond to. But there's one particular question that I think falls right within the ambit of what the objective of my presentation was, that you must be able to find avenues to engage the different ministries at national level and the different departments, are they called, at the county level, so that the interests of the students that you lead are addressed in resource management in this country. And the question is, how do you get access to those institutions? There is something that they say often, and that is there's strength in numbers. It is so much more difficult for one individual to go and make noise unless you're a very good noisemaker. When I was practicing in the court corridors every day, there was a gentleman who was known across all the courts. He had over 100 cases filed in court because any issue that arose, he would be filing a case and he was moving from one court to the next. And of course, some of them he was able to win. But not many of us have the zeal and energy to be able to do this. And I think that is why even as students, you come together and have these organizations, even the one that has got a difficult name that I forget. That one, you know, that one. Yes, yes, you get it clearly. The importance of communication is that you get what I'm saying. So even with that organization, you have to come together for you to be heard. Now, the more that you are known, I mean, the Cabinet Secretary gave time and ear to the students who came to him because they came as a group. That is a start, and that's a process that you can use to structure your engagement, including being included as key stakeholders in the various sectors that will be engaging in the budget process. And I think that's a conversation that we can continue to have even at the end of today when we have the planning session on how we plan to move the agenda forward. Because for me, that excites me because it says you want to be meaningful leaders and to have meaningful leadership in line with what Yogo presented to you as to who a leader is. Are you there just because you have been put, or are you a leader because you have the character to be that leader? So let's not get frustrated that the avenues are tight. Yes, they can be tight. They are very much tighter when you go as an individual, but the space opens up when you go as a group of students. And remember that in Kenya right now, they say strike when the iron is hot. The time is for the youth. After the Gen Z uprising in 2024, I think that even those people who did not want to listen to the youth and to be concerned about the welfare of the youth have to incorporate it in the way they address issues of public resource management, of policy development at the national and county levels. So I hope that you will bear with us. I think that just excites some of you to stay on and listen to the cabinet secretary and get responses to the questions that you're raising now, that will speak to the issues of budget, whether it's implementation or it is the process of developing that budget. The other questions I think are addressed to my colleagues.
All right, there is a kind request. The persons with the microphones, kindly switch them off. Thank you. Let's invite Mr. Osborne Yogo to address the questions that were targeted towards him. Let's appreciate him once more.
Who and who are having the mics? The second one iko wapi? It's on. Where's the second mic? Yes.
Well, I think the first person spoke about the dream and the vision and its actualization. And the question was how to adopt the vision and to help in the realization of the same. I think the question came from some angle here. Thank you. Well, I would give two answers, and then I would give a scenario as to why I'm saying this. Allow me to first explain this. We've been talking about transformations in the country which require civic responsibility and participation of the younger generation. Today, when we look at our population, it is noted that we are 72.8%, 35 years and below. If it comes to the voting population, almost 46% of the registered voters fall within, actually 65%, of which the majority is in between 18 to 25 years of age at 46%. Now, if you look at this matrix, in the year 2013, out of that larger population, only 17% turned up to vote. That should worry you. In 2017, the increase was 0.17%. So we had 17.17% turning out to vote. Would you want to know how many voted in 2022? So now, why am I saying this? There could be a dream, but for that dream to be actualized, two critical things are required. Number one, I am talking about walking the path with the vision bearer. We must, as individuals, be proactive. Once the dream is laid bare, what we call as the shared objectives, they are shared so that it becomes a corporate responsibility for each one of us to follow through the process and walk the journey with the vision bearer. Now, the current government and also at the National Treasury, led by FCPA John Badi, who is the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, has an agenda. And for this agenda to be realized, then we as young people that are the forerunners of this dream and vision must be proactive. And that brings me to the second point, which is we must own the dream. If we don't own it, then we would not be proactive enough to run with it. I am a Bible-believing Christian, and like my colleague Millie says, a practicing Christian. I believe in the Bible a verse that says, write the vision and make it plain so that whoever reads it may run with it. It said, though the vision may tarry, wait for it, because in due time it shall definitely produce. But I love the point that it says that he that reads it may run. So the entire responsibility of achieving or realizing the vision is that we must run with it. So I've given you those 2 points. Can we be proactive as individuals? Then can we also own the dream and own the vision so that it is not a national treasury dream? it is not FCPA John Buddy's vision, but it becomes our own corporate responsibility, our corporate vision that requires corporate responsibility, individual indulgence. Let's imbibe it and have it as our own, and let's run with it. Now, maybe the last thing I would talk about, like Millie has mentioned, much of the questions that you've raised are more preemptive of the session that is coming after, that will be chaired by our boss and the cabinet secretary. But somebody, as we think about that, I would want us to think through this. Kenya churns approximately 400,000 people into the labor market annually. I was reading a report by World Bank, and it puts it at 800,000 with an uptake of 50,000. Our own statistics put it at 400,000 with an uptake of around 10%. So I want you to ask yourself, how many companies and organizations will the government put in place to employ these people? That's a question I would want you to do. But meanwhile, I would just highlight 3 things that, with regards to the opportunities that are created for the young people, having been in this space for a very long time. I think the most recently inaugurated is the Nyota program. I don't know how many of us have heard of the Nyota program and know what is required to be a beneficiary of the Nyota program. The second that we have is the National Youth Empowerment Fund. Most people are aware of the Ways of Fund, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, and finally there is a very intentional, and we have an officer, a director from planning, that would most probably speak to that later, that there is an intentional investment on the TVET. I think, going by what I saw last, it's an investment of around 27 billion Kenya shillings into bringing up the TVET institutions into up to speed, so that our young people can come out with skills that will enable them to be self-sufficient. I believe that it is the responsibility of the government to provide a conducive environment, because globally people are moved from blue-collar, white-collar jobs into entrepreneurship and service delivery. So the responsibility of the government is to create a conducive environment that would enable both entrepreneurship and service delivery to thrive. And that is why government is also investing so heavily on the TVET institutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. I'd like to invite once more Mr. Alphonse Ochola, and then subsequently Miss Mary Joyner. All right, Mr. Alphonse Ochola, as people didn't ask Miss Mary questions, to come wrap it up. Let's appreciate Mr. Alphonse.
Well, thank you once more. Now, I want to start by addressing the question on the implementation process when it comes to budget allocation. Now, while addressing that, I want to give you my version of what governance is. Now, to me, governance are structures that are meant to ensure that people of goodwill are entrusted by the responsibility of managing the resources of a country. So while in that line, who has the power of electing these people? It is the general populace. Therefore, it means that we have a shared responsibility as far as governance is concerned in ensuring that we are first of all, the vigilant forces that ensures the implementation of all the policies that we pass across. Remember, we only have a section of leaders in this country. We are the people who have empowered them to be in positions of power. Therefore, we need to ensure that through certain channels, we keep these people to account. The next one, someone talked about waiving the help. So remember when a government spends on a given area of specialization, we need to address the issue of the return of investment. Now, what am I saying? That as far as there are few jobs in Kenya, remember, you might have a business. Sometimes you might be employed at a later date. So the issue here is not to waive the help 100%, but come up with a negotiated payment plan so that the interest on loan doesn't increase significantly during the period you are not employed. In that way, we will ensure that once you get that employment, remember, your help repayment plan is to the benefit of another person to get access to free education. You have had this chance of can't pay, you won't pay, right? Yeah. So after, we need to, if you don't pay the help, then it is to the detriment of the dispensation of education rights for those who are coming before you or after you. The next one was the question that was asked on mental health issues. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not aware of the specifications or the breakdowns of the budgets that should go to cater for mental health problems. But as an institution, or from the various institutions we are coming from, we can ensure as student leaders that we take these institutions to account, such that if, let's say, 5 billion has been allocated to your school, you need the breakdown of all the listings of the expenditure that we have under that amount that has been allocated. So if, for example, I have allocated 5 billion, and you are convicted that mental health is a serious concern in the organization or in this institution that you are coming from, then we are going to convince the school administration to allocate some part of the money that was allocated to the school to cover mental health issues. Then I think most of the questions that have been asked, I think if there is any breakdown of money that is supposed to go under mental health, then it is supposed to be under the State Department for Social Protection. Then unless I'm not aware, but I think the CS is best placed to answer that question. Thank you so much.
All right, let's appreciate our speakers. They have done an amazing job. Appreciate yourselves for listening in.